the underrepresented community need to get crazy obsessed about AI. It's the most powerful platform that they can use to level up. The biggest risk for me is that inherently it's been trained by biased data that perpetuates old narratives that are wrong. Perpetuate assumptions that are fundamentally wrong.
For a leader listening right now who's building or deploying an AI system, what is one question they should ask their team to test whether their product is likely to reduce bias or amplify it? So see this as the litmus test for equitable AI. Can an algorithm be fair? In a world struggling with systemic bias, many hope that artificial intelligence can be a tool to create a more equitable future. But what if it makes things worse? Welcome to the Anaya Algorithm, the podcast for leaders who want to build the future intentionally. I'm your host, Magdalene Anagashti. Today, we are tackling one of the most important questions of our time with our guest, Pius Bozumbil. This is a conversation that moves from the personal to the universal, from one man's journey or story of using AI to level up to the immense challenge of building AI that can reduce or even end discrimination. This is a deep, challenging, and ultimately hopeful look at how we can build a more equitable algorithm. Please join me in welcoming Pius Bozumbil. Pius, thank you so much for being here. You've proposed a topic that is not only technologically relevant, but profoundly human. Welcome to the Anaya Algorithm.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Awesome, Pius. Would you mind starting by introducing yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Pius Bozumbil, a founder of a startup called True Talent. We're trying to use intelligence to help talent teams to find exceptional people. And with this, it started off basically from our own personal pain of trying to find talent where you spend a lot of time in manual, drudgery, intensive manual work. And I thought there was a better way to do it. So I set forth to create True Talent to do that. I'm also a massive AI enthusiast. I remember when ChatGPT first came out, I was one of the first to sign up for it. And ever since, I've been experimenting with AI to test its limits, how I can use it in my personal life and also my professional life. So I'm really looking forward to having a very, very fruitful conversation on AI.
Awesome. And I'm excited to have you on this session, and I'm looking forward to an extremely educative, inspiring, and insightful session. Pius, you wanted to start with a personal story, which I think is the most powerful place to begin. You said you wanted to share how you use AI to level up. Can you tell us about your journey and the specific ways AI has been a tool for your own empowerment?
So I remember the first day I tested it, I ran to my wife, I logged on ChatGPT, started playing around with it, writing emails. I remember sort of like putting on different personas, as you call them, the prompt engineering. And I realized the power of how you can actually use it to address some of your weaknesses, right? So for example, one of the things that I love, and one of the reasons why the use case for me using it on an everyday basis is how it constructs your communication, breaks things down, explains things, demystify things for you. And so for me, I found very, very practical ways. And also like the most powerful way that I've used it on a personal level has been, I've become very obsessed with investments. I'm looking at ways to build wealth, ways to increase income coming in. How can I double it? How can I increase it at the very minimum? And I've been wondering how the ultra high net worth people invest their money, how they grow it to a level where, a sort of their wealth just keeps increasing. Right? And so I started this prompt experiment where I asked ChatGPT to pretend to be my private banker for a very respected investment bank that we all know. They're one of the
I
best.
love that.
I don't want to, mention their name, but
Yeah.
essentially able to prompt a private banker. I was able to go into my trading account. I use an app for all my investments. I took a screenshot of all the investments that I had and then fed it to the AI. And then I asked the AI to pretend as if it was trying to grow my money from where it was to an ultra high net worth individual. I was very, very impressed with how the AI was able to analyze my investments. I gave it a very specific task to grow the money at a minimum of 100% like return year on year. And I intentionally set that at very ambitious sort of targets. I was watching the AI do some market analysis. It was able to take some of the stock that I had. And at the time, I wasn't even using my the free ISA that government gives you. The first 20K that you invest is tax free. I wasn't even using that. And then the AI was able to pick on that immediately. And I was able to reorganize my investments, suggested some of the shares that I wanted, asked me about my sort of like investment persona or, how I like to invest. Am I a risky person? And I just went the full throttle that, look, I'd rather you go aggressive and find some stocks. And it went, found stocks. And I remember at the time, I was very desperate to get into SpaceX, OpenAI. I wanted to like get investments in those avenues. And then it came back and said those type of investments are only available through a private channel, but it was
Yeah.
able to recommend platforms and so on and so forth. And I looked at this tool. I was like, look at this. How could I have afforded a private banker? There is no way,
Yeah.
income that I have or the category of wealth that I have, there's no way I can afford, a private banker. They earn more than me to start with. But here we are, a tool has been invented, and I'm able to create something for myself. And this is very, very practical. I see the benefits. The recommendation of stocks that it gave me, they're actually making me
Yeah.
returns. Right? They are, I'm not losing any money as it stands, right? Making more than the S&P 500 on the investments. So for me, it just paints a picture of the future that awaits us, right?
Yeah.
You're able to immerse yourself in this tool, how powerful it become on a personal level, and also be able to complement you as an individual. So wherever you're lacking, this could be a strategy of like really addressing all the gaps that you have personally.
Wow.
So for me, AI, I've only got good things to say about AI, and I'm not naive to the risk and so on, which I know we're going to be covering.
Yeah. Wow, this is so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that, Pius. It's a powerful testament to the idea that technology can be a democratizing force, right? Because you've literally identified a better approach to addressing a limitation that you otherwise couldn't have been able to overcome. How do you see your personal experience scaling, and what are the biggest opportunities you see for AI to empower other underrepresented individuals or communities, whether it's in education, access to capital, or career growth?
So for me, the first thing I'll say is underrepresented people need to obsess about AI. I truly
Yeah.
feel that it's the biggest platform that they can use to level up. I've never seen a transformational tool in my lifetime that actually gives you a tool that can impact your life in a very direct and tangible way. So for me, and let me give you this example so it sort of puts things in context. I was in the middle of fundraising for True Talent. And as I was fundraising, I started to ponder, at the time I had a team, my MVP, I had to, give the MVP to someone who developed the code, and it came back and it was very, very buggy, right? The curious nature of me, I started asking questions. I'm like, I've been using AI for investing and, it's successfully, acting as my private banker. And I said to myself, and I did my research, and I found out that one of the number one use cases for AI is actually coding or engineering, software engineering.
Yeah.
And so I started experimenting with it. Now, when I started experimenting with it, not only was it coding, it was actually doing my product management as well. and I started using it for other things. Soon it became very, very
Yes.
clear that don't waste your time pitching investors, right? This tool is available. Take this tool as far as you can. If you need investment, you need investment, but take it as far as you can. Use it to build your product. And it completely changed, my perspective in terms of my startup, being able to take my time off chasing investors versus actually
Yeah.
building products that I can ship to market and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, it's become very, very powerful. So imagine a Black founder, statistically, I'm not going to get a looking as much as, other communities, right?
Yeah.
So this way, I'm using AI to offset that disadvantage. So I'm actually practically building stuff. I'm not complaining about investing or how the investment game is working against me. AI is actually giving me the platform to compete.
Hmm. Yeah.
And for me, and that's
Yeah.
the reason why I'm saying that the underrepresented community need to get crazy obsessed about AI. It's the most powerful platform that they can use to level up. At the moment, I'm experimenting with using AI for a whole lot of things, right? And it's given me the power to even start dreaming about things that I thought wasn't possible. Now they're
Possible.
in realms of possibility. So it's truly very exciting. So for me, anyone who has the right attitude, AI just moves you from complaining to actually taking action, or at least try to do something for yourself versus, sitting on the sidelines.
Wow. This is so inspiring. Really excited to have you share all these useful knowledge, which I believe will be fantastic for the wider audience. So this brings us to the core of our conversation. So you said, can AI reduce or end discrimination? Let's tackle that head on. What is the most compelling argument for yes, it can?
So yes, it can, because you have this tool in your hands that you can design it to behave the way you want it to behave.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I'll give you an example. I was using an AI persona. I wanted the AI to take on a persona as a data analyst or a data engineer. And then the name that is suggested was Alexandra Chen, right? And
Yes.
then here I was, straight away, it hit me that it's probably been fed a lot of information that, Kofi or a
Yeah.
Kojo or an Ade, um, someone from maybe South Africa with a traditional African name, they've not been fed an
Yes.
algorithm to tell them
Yeah.
that there is, Africans who are engineers also, right?
Yes.
What I did was I was able to change the name from Alexandra Chen to an African name. And I was able to create a diverse list of names, right? Now, what the AI has given me is the AI has shown its bias straight off. And I can deal with that. I can take that and design a solution to counter that bias. And that's why I feel like it's a very, very powerful tool with all the risk that comes with it and with all the, obviously, the data that, has been trained, that has been used to train the AI. Look at all the history of humanity. Even when you think about the recent, the information on the internet about Africa, about Black people, so on and so forth, it would naturally pick up on those biases. But I think that you can tease out that biases and you can actually design a system that can actually change it, tune it out,
Yeah.
or retrain it in your context, right? And that becomes a way that you can actually solve discrimination by yourself. Practical example, especially with our platform, one of our key principles is that whenever we analyze profiles and we recommend them as a shortlisted candidate or not. You see every data that tells you why this person has been shortlisted. And why are we doing
Yes.
that? We're doing that because we want to hold the AI accountable. Where there are mistakes, we want to see it. Where there are biases, we want to see it. Because the more we see it, the more we're able to deal with it. Okay. So for me, that is the most powerful case against it. With all its risk, you can actually fine tune it out, or recalibrate it in a way that you can actually see it,
Yeah.
or it can address fundamentally a disadvantage, a discrimination, or someone being treated unfairly.
Wow, that is amazing and a very optimistic vision that we can design algorithms to be intentionally blind to the biases that humans hold, whether conscious or unconscious. And it's the idea of using technology to build a true meritocracy. Now, for the other side of the coin, we've all heard stories about biased AI systems that perpetuate discrimination in hiring, policing, or lending. In your view, what is the biggest risk we face of AI making discrimination worse, not better?
So, like the biggest risk for me is that inherently it's been trained by biased data that perpetuates old narratives that are wrong, perpetuates assumptions that are fundamentally wrong. So that's the biggest risk that like
Yeah,
AI has. That sort of like native risk of it coming with that sort of biasness. So at the first level, that is really what needs to be tackled. So, if you're training your model at a foundational level, you really have to pay attention to the quality of the data that you're using to train the data.
yeah,
If you start seeing AI suggesting anyone's name for an engineering role, then you know that like you're getting somewhere. But I think we need to think about how we deal with that, like out of the box risk that comes with AI. And that is one big thing that I think that we'll find it very, very hard
yeah,
to eradicate.
yeah.
Like I said, that control layer gives us some hope, but it doesn't eliminate things completely.
So you made a really good point there that there's this critical danger that we're simply encoding historical human biases into a black box and then calling it objective. It's a core reason we advocate for intentional governance and I agree, because without it, AI just becomes a high-speed automated version of our own worst instincts. Yeah. So moving on to, my view of what is that leader's playbook for equitable AI. For a leader listening right now who's building or deploying an AI system, what is one question they should ask their team to test whether their product is likely to reduce bias or amplify it? So see this as the litmus test for equitable AI.
So I think the key question is understanding the risk profile of like
Yeah.
the foundational models that we're using. What is the risk profile? And for me, I start off with a very, very bad sort of like scenario set, which is the AI probably doesn't know that females, can become engineers. There are blacks who are engineers in top of industries, like all this innate biases, they come out of the box. So if you're looking to build something for humanity, for people to use, actually, I think that first of all, you need to know the risk profile of what you're dealing
Yes.
with. The second thing is you need to have a set of governance principles. What are you using AI for? Like, what is it for? Are they being used for credit? And that credit, are you making that credit accessible to all? Or are you making it accessible to only like a few people? Like really, your use case need to be very clear. Once your use case is clear, then you identify what sort of governance do I put in place. So, for example, for us at True Talent, transparency has to be core. Why? Because in the course of reviewing profiles or looking at all this, the talent market includes everybody and everyone, like literally everyone. And I think at a fundamental level, everyone deserves transparency. They need to understand why certain things have been done. They need to understand and need to see that data for themselves. Whatever data that is shared with a recruiter, that same data should be shared with a candidate, not processed in between. They need to look at the same view, okay? Because when you do that, you're laying bare like the inner workings of your products, right? And you're able to challenge your systems. You're able to make sure that you have complex, the complexity are unveiled. Mistakes,
Yeah.
are unveiled as well, so you can tackle them head on. So for us, like a core part of governance is that transparency element. It's incredibly important. If it's not transparent, we should not be serving it to a client or to. So if you go on a platform, if someone is shortlisted or they're not shortlisted, you get a full view of why, with evidence.
That's
Do they
great.
have the skill set? Did you see it on a
Yeah.
profile? You see it. The next step is in conversations like this, the AI taking notes from the conversation, being able to provide quotes and say, this is evidence of what the person said. And it aligns to this skill set or this experience that you're looking for. It has to be based on evidence at a foundational level. And that's like I said to you earlier, it's one of the primary principles when it comes to our data, our AI governance. Another thing as well is when you define your use case, you really need to understand the profile of individuals that you're serving. It's very, very important. If you're serving a community, let's say, that do not understand AI, I think that it's incumbent on you to add that education piece, to educate them on, like your tooling, educate them
Yeah.
on, they're entitled to know, right? At a very foundational level, what is
Yeah.
being used here. So for me, those are some of the things that I look at.
Lovely. Just thinking it's brilliant and a practical litmus test, which every business should consider. And even more so for your business, which is looking at, the humans, recruitment. There's such a huge impact, positively or negatively, when AI is being used and it affects people, where biases are being incorporated subconsciously. But then again, before I was recording, I did mention that you find products being created, AI tools or solutions being created, and at the time of development, the reason behind its development did not require certain measures of governance. But then later down the line, this tool develops to and becomes something that is being used by a much wider audience. And the question is, were those uh, or are there continuous governance review being done to ensure that the decisions made at the time of development has been revised to incorporate the impact on these new users? And so it's really important that you shared one of the core, I would say, litmus tests that should be incorporated in any business, in any solution at all where AI or technology development is concerned. So
I
thank you
totally
for
agree.
sharing this.
And then there are also like risk,
Yes.
emerging use cases that originally, like you said, were not on the template. And then, and governance, I feel like governance is going to be that powerful piece that bridges the gap
Yes.
if it's done properly, right? Because the governance would hold AI accountable in terms of how it's used, so on and so forth. But there's a critical point that I wanted to make as well. The AI is so intelligent, it's a knife essentially. It can be used for bad and it can be used for good. Now, if it wants to commit fraud, right, it would understand every context. It would understand every human behavior. So, for good or for bad, it can be a very, very powerful tool. And we need to be very, very familiar. I mean, the intelligence level, it would just be able to predict our next action. So imagine an AI that's able to predict your next action point, right? Or can predict 10 action points that you might take, and then would
Yeah.
have a solution for all of it, even before you make them. So out of all the 10 action points that you take, you might do, the option 6 or option 9, and it's got a reaction for you. right? For the next step action already. So these are things that when you look at, even though it's exciting, at the same time, I look at it as a knife. It can be used for good and it can be used for bad as well.
Awesome. This is great. Thank you so much, Pius. That takes me to the next question around building the right team. And as you know, that can also have a big impact when it comes to the output of the solution being developed. How important is it to have a diverse team building the AI in the first place? And can a non-diverse team ever truly build an equitable algorithm? Let's take the
So,
first question. How
yes.
important do you think it is?
So this is my fundamental belief, right? Regardless of AI or not.
Yes.
If product, if a product is being used by an audience, the people that are building it should reflect that audience,
Yeah.
right? And what does that mean? It means that you're building with empathy, you're building with an awareness for all the actors within your client community, right? So at a foundational level, I believe that the more diverse, and when we talk about diversity, it's not just about physical diversity. We're talking about every single diversity that you can think about, right? Being on the table. And I remember we're building a product where it was a fintech product serving a wide range. A big portion of that product were a female audience.
Mm.
And I remember one of the lucky things that we had in that team was the fact that we had a female engineer. And then she came up with this idea that, look, the categorization of how people spend money, there is a woman's perspective in terms of how she categorizes her spending. Like, for example, beauty as a category, right? Men will probably not have something called beauty. It might be something else, okay?
Yeah.
But just for her to bring that out and her being an engineer, imagine if she wasn't in a team and bringing that perspective, right? And then being able to add that to that product, to bring that into the product. That is the diversity that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
She's reflecting the audience that are using the product, and she'll bring that empathy into that product build so that it serves the customers really well. If you're building a product for a certain community and then you're not seeing them in your team, I think that you should start questioning. This is where I think DEI has gone wrong. It is not about diversity, equity, inclusion. It's about empathy. It's about the community that I'm serving, right? You're using the same yardstick. I don't think you should reduce, your quality. You should reduce your
Mhm.
criteria because there is, an ethnic minority person involved. And I think that as someone who works in recruitment, I feel like we should really fight back on this perspective that, look, it's not about reducing standards. You maintain standards. You have to maintain the best. There's no substitute for finding the best, right? But it's about going out there and then making sure that as many people are considered for opportunities as possible without reducing
Yes.
standards. And I think that's a very powerful point to make.
Awesome. I love that. And the example you give is very, practical and relatable. I'm asking because you and I know back 10 years ago, tech and AI, 15 odd years, much more so than now, highly skewed towards a particular, um, demography and less of women of color. And so could we then say what has been built back then are not equitable, or do you think that it can happen that non-diverse teams can still build an equitable?
I'm very, very skeptical about the potential of a team that are not diverse building something that is
Yeah.
truly diverse. I'm only skeptical because the experiences that it can bring to the table,
Yes.
the different perspectives that can be brought onto the table, would it be limited or would it be enhanced? I would argue if you have one subset, right? If you have a white only, I'll call it out, let's call it out. If you have a tech industry that is very, white centric, without any other players being involved, I think that there's that risk of like, What are
Yeah.
the options that were put on the table? What are some of the considerations that went into building the product? But in saying that, you also come across, and I really don't, I'm not a big fan of like reducing the conversation to just like whites and blacks.
Yes.
It needs to be more elevated in a sense that we should be calling out facts, right? We should be calling out what is being missed. And in my point, the point that I want to make is this: I'm questioning, without diversity, what is on the table? What is the what is the foundational premise of the product being built? And to be honest with you, but the data suggests we've seen
Yeah.
products that are hugely popular that you might go in and have a look and it would have the
Yes, you can't
diversity would,
relate.
you know, the diversity is not as anyone
Yeah.
would expect, but you know, they've been able to build a product that everyone can use. So there's
Hmm.
always, even though I'm skeptical, the data could be saying something different. But then again, there's also data that says diverse teams versus non-diverse teams. The difference you can tell the
Yeah.
difference when it comes to the output. Um,
And I think this was a very interesting question simply because it got me reflecting on whether more advocacy should be made on tools that have been done in the past, built in the past, to be reviewed in the interest of equity. Because,
mm,
like we said before, I alluded to when tools are built with a particular use case in mind, but later on it expands in its impact or how it's being used and people that use it. It's only fair that we advocate for a continuous review of the decisions made in the process of the development of those tools to ensure that it's a bit more incorporating than it was before, of the diversity of thought of um, and ensuring that it gives everyone a fairer um, chance. So again, it's my thinking around we're looking at AI and the excitement of it being used these days, but then what about the stuff that have been done in the past? And are we going back to make sure that we've reviewed it with a new lens and ensuring it is still fit for purpose? Because whilst it's giving you information, you want to make sure it's actually making the better decisions, rather than just relying on what has been used for in the past. So I couldn't agree with you more on your thoughts around, being skeptical around the team, the diversity, and how it can impact on, the outcome. And again, there's this principle that you cannot solve a problem you don't understand from a lived experience, right? It's always easier to very quickly come from a place of empathy when you're addressing something that you've lived, which is why I always advocate for allyship, because we cannot all be the same, but we need to learn from each other in a way that I can relate with what you're sharing, even though what you're sharing is more of it's alien to me. I might not be able to ever live your experience, but I should be able to understand it. So again, allyship becomes important because it ensures that we can all add the best of our bits when we are thinking and bringing these thoughts into lived products that can impact people.
yeah, and representation is very powerful here, like massively powerful.
Yeah,
And, when you look at the tech industry, you talked about allyship, you talked about advocacy, and you see a lot of work that goes into trying to increase representation within the tech space. Lots
yeah,
of organizations are doing great work to make this happen. Because for me, when you think about technology, it's a tool for humanity, right? It shouldn't be a tool for just a subset of humanity. It should cover every human. So I think that the more people we have under the tent, the
yes,
better, right? We have more diverse products. We have, like you said, lived experience. We have products that you can tell from the build that this is lived experience. Like if you think about me as a Black person in recruitment, right? Sitting on the other side, being the one
Yeah.
reviewing profiles and everything else. I wanted to build a tool that will protect people like me, right? Because I want to
Yes.
know when I make an application, two things happen. It's either I'm selected or I'm not, right? And if I'm not selected, I would love to know why.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I'd want to know why. And I've had lots of interviews. I've had lots of, over my lifetime, like I've been rejected for lots of things that I would love to know why did I not, why did I not, was I not
Yeah.
successful? Why did I move forward? And for me, bringing that lived experience of the frustration of someone like me not knowing what goes into a decision led me to this point to say, look, make the data bare, like lay it bare. Let
Yes.
everyone have a look at it. Let them, even for me, like one of the features that we're looking to build in a product um, is to allow anyone who is looking at the data or consuming the data to be able to say if this data is correct or wrong. Almost like a like or dislike. Okay.
Yeah.
At a very fundamental level. And then using that data, not only, giving the person the data, but let's say, for example, if they were rejected for a role, being able to support them.
Yes.
Right? Can you bring some insights? Can you bring what you're seeing in the market that perhaps they don't have on their profile? Okay. Oh, we're seeing a lot more people who don't have experience in software engineering. We're seeing them taking on side projects. We're seeing them exploring things in their social circle. So, for example, someone has just graduated from software engineering. They're complaining, I don't have any experience, right? And you reject them for not having experience, but being able to say to them, hey, I see that you have no commercial experience yet, but maybe
Yeah.
explore, you know, your social team. Do they have like an app that can help you
Yeah.
guys organize? If you belong to a church, does your church have a website, right? Build them a website. Do they have a way of registering who came to church this Sunday or who didn't? Those who didn't, why
Yeah.
did they not come to work? Is it because they're sick? Can they send a message to, let's say, your special team that looks after people who
Yeah.
maybe have not been coming to church for some time? It doesn't need to be human remembering it, but it's a system flagging it, right? These are things that when I speak to people that are rejected for software engineering roles and they're new graduates, these are the things that I tell them. I tell them to explore the world around them. Go
Yeah.
experience. Like, if you know a friend who is running a startup, take on a data analyst position. Tell them, look, I want to see the kind of data that you're processing. Like, get yourself through the door. Find something to do with that talent. Again, so for me, it's about that transparency element, bringing that data
Yeah.
to bear, but not only just bringing it to bear, but using that data as a platform to add value to the person.
I love that. And I think to summarize it all, I love what you said, and you've shared so many gold nuggets, knowledge, and learnings to help people who are still on that journey in their careers. I think to summarize everything, a diverse team isn't just a nice to have, it's a fundamental requirement for building technology that serves a diverse world. So,
100.
to bring it all together, Pius, what is the one commitment you would ask every leader to make today to help ensure the AI they build is a force for empowerment, not discrimination?
So for me, I will plead with leaders to question the opportunities that a product that they're building, they should think about the impact. Is it elevating or is it not elevating? Especially if it's not elevating, they really need to think about, should I be building this? If it is elevating, then it's welcome. Is it bringing opportunities that were not previously available to people? So really at a fundamental level, you should be questioning the impact, right? Positive or negative. If it's
Yeah,
negative, then you really need to revisit the idea. If it's really a positive, because I fundamentally think that I want every professional to be able to have control over their career. Okay. At a fundamental level. If they're in a place where they are very unhappy, they are not celebrated. Okay.
yeah,
Or the progress the progress where they feel they need to be at, it's not moving fast enough. I want to have a platform that can give them that power, right? There are individuals who move faster in their career than others. You could see a 25-year-old who's a CTO, right? And you could see a 25-year-old who is a junior developer somewhere. Everyone has got like different speeds. Okay.
Yes.
We want to be able to build a platform that is able to work to the person's interest, work to the person's, strengths, what is available to them. So it's all about elevating. And if we cannot do that at a scale, then we should not be, we don't have the right to bring this product to market. So that's my challenge to every leader. Question and challenge the impact of the product that you're building.
That is a powerful commitment and the perfect place to end. Pius, thank you for bringing such a vital and personal perspective to this conversation.
Thank you so much for the platform to share some of my ideas and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome. And I look forward to having you on this podcast in the future because you've got a wealth of knowledge, both with your personal journey and also with building through talent and the awesome work you're doing to serve the community.
Thank you. And I really want to highlight the important work that people like yourself do, which is the governance piece. If you look at the times that we live in, the governance piece is so, so critical. How do we
Yeah.
make sure AI is aligned to our interests? How do we make sure AI is meritocratic, right? To everyone, as many people as possible. How do we make sure that, our eyes are open to the risks that AI presents to everyone? And I think that you're working in that space where, I cannot wait to see the accountability, how AI is held to account and make sure it's aligned to.
Amazing, Pius. Thank you so much. Wow. What a profound conversation with Pius. My key takeaway, amongst many, many, is that building equitable AI is not a technical problem. It's a leadership challenge. It requires intention, empathy, and a relentless commitment to asking the hard questions at every stage of development. So, to connect with Pius, please visit the links on our show notes. You can also connect with Pius on LinkedIn. And if you are a leader committed to building your own intentional, equitable technology strategy, you can learn more about our frameworks at Anaya Group by visiting anaya.org. Until next time, keep leading intentionally. Thank you.
Thank you.